You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Henry Juszkiewicz, who's the CEO of Gibson Guitars. Henry, a pleasure to have you.
It is very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's actually very exciting to talk to you because your history as a turnaround guy in the business world didn't actually start with Gibson, but you've been there now for a couple of decades, and you took what was, with all due respect to the people before you, but rather a failing company and turned it around to be, I guess, the top guitar company on the planet. So I'm very happy we're talking about that.
Well, and I'm happy to talk about it. It's a passion of my life. So.
But unfortunately, you've hit a few bumps along the way, and that's what I'd like to focus on in the beginning of the discussion, which is Gibson Guitar suffered over the past couple of years from what would seem like very harsh government intervention, to put it nicely, as the Justice Department went after you because of the Lacey Act. Could you just tell people the story of what this looked like?
Yeah, it was, it was pretty incredible, actually. First, the Lacey Act has to deal with protecting natural resources, and it was really a very old law that was originally proposed by Theodore Roosevelt almost a century ago against people that were poaching animals for clothing and hats and so forth, and very exotic animals. And consequently, the law was very, very severe because the crime was quite severe. However, because it's one of the most severe laws in terms of punishment, it has been amended multiple times to include more and more types of product that aren't necessarily of the same order of magnitude of seriousness. And just a year before the government sort of went after Gibson, it was amended once again to include wood. So any wood product now becomes under this very, very onerous law. And to my knowledge, we were the first company or even individual pursued under this new amended Lacey Act.
So they felt you were doing something wrong regarding wood. I guess this is related to the rainforests?
Yes, and in fact, I have been a prominent supporter of environmental causes and actually quite friendly with many of the organizations in there. I'm a big, strong supporter of government activity in the area. And our wood supply was on the order of 80% certified. So we not only purchase responsibly, but we have third-party certification saying that we purchase responsibly. And as such, we're a leader in our industry.
So what made the government go after you?
Well, from what I can tell, it's because their attention was drawn when one of our people went over at the request of Greenpeace to Madagascar. And Madagascar is a very kind of bad place. They've had a number of coups. They are not very responsible in terms of natural resources. And Greenpeace was attempting to induce them to certify their wood resources and sort of do the right thing. And their approach was to bring companies that would buy product from that island and said, you can make all this money, and they would only buy if the wood is responsibly harvested. And so you have, the carrot and the stick, if you will. And so we joined them, as did many companies in our industry. And apparently we were spotted and our name was prominent, and We actually did buy wood from Madagascar, and that was the start of our troubles.
So I thought that Madagascar, the government there themselves, actually told you that the work that you were doing and the exporting that you were doing from there was okay.
Absolutely. And in fact, we sued the government in the United States to recover they not only raided us hostily, and they came in with armed people, with SWAT vests and automatic weapons, and they came in our factory and evacuated all our folks, put them out in the parking lot, completely stopped work, and started seizing a considerable amount of raw wood. And they really, frankly, didn't know what they were looking at for the most part. And so we sued them. After a year and not being charged, we said, you have to return we had the right to say, either return our wood or charge us. Mm-hmm. They did neither. But as a consequence, we were in court, and they had to answer to a judge. And they never really proved that we did anything incorrectly. And we have affidavits from Madagascar saying that we did everything in compliance with their laws. So it was, pretty ironic.
Okay, we are talking with Henry Juszkiewicz, who's the chairman and CEO of Gibson Guitar. Gibson was in the news in the past because it was claimed that the company was importing wood from Madagascar as well as India. And one of the funny things about this, I mean, it's funny sort of from an outside perspective, and I know it was not, of course, funny for you, was that it seemed as if there were no particular laws in the United States that they were claiming Gibson broke, but rather that Gibson was doing something wrong in Madagascar, and yet you had the okay from the Madagascar government. How did this progress?
Well, that's absolutely correct, and this law is particularly onerous because what this law effectively says is that it doesn't matter whether you intentionally wanted to do something wrong. Okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you took a great deal of effort to ensure that you did nothing wrong. In other words, we were certifying the product and going to third party. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're innocent. It doesn't matter whether you have intent. The law says specifically that you could be guilty if you just didn't do enough. And enough is not defined. Mm-hmm. And so we could absolutely have done everything properly to the best of our knowledge. We could have no intent to do anything bad. And yet, I or other people in our company could go to jail for as long as 10 years.
Wow. Okay. So let's drill in a little further, because I think it's actually very interesting, your approach, whereas I think many smaller companies, and I guess we can still define Gibson as a smaller company, would have possibly either thrown in the towel or just said, we're trying to give Americans work and it's not working out, so we're going to ship this business overseas. And you've done quite the opposite, which is not only are you staying in Tennessee, but you yourself have gone to Washington and tried to work with Congress in order to fix the system a little bit. But a lot of small companies are complaining about the tremendous overreach of the government and the over-bureaucracy. Are we just moving in that direction and it's just going to get worse and worse?
Yeah, no, I'll try to put it in brief, but obviously it's a very complex problem, and I've spent now 2 years dealing with, people in Congress and senators and people who've been impacted by this law. But the bottom line is, over the last 100 years, the executive branch of our government has taken upon itself more and more privilege. And at the bottom line is they have what's called executive privilege in many cases, which means that they are not accountable for their actions. So if I do something wrong as a company, I can be sued by you or by other people, and I have to answer to a court of law that, in fact, I did nothing wrong, and I could be convicted or not. But the government could do heinous things to people and claim a form of executive privilege and never be held accountable. They could just walk away. And so that goes against our whole system of law. It goes against the Constitution and the Sixth Amendment. And it allows people with bad intent to use this as a political tool. So who's to say that, for some reason, the president didn't like me?
Right.
Okay?
Well,
and he could say to the Justice Department, go get this guy.
and they'll
And
find
you know
something.
what? They would come after me. And they could be wrong. I could be proven innocent if it ever came to that. And they just walk away, having cost me millions of dollars and persecuted me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that's what happened. I think, I don't think it was a political motive at the end of the day, but it could happen. It could very well happen.
So what was the motivation? In other words, how were you picked out to be, attacked in this way, unless they really felt that there was something wrong going on?
Well, I think that they really made a error in judgment. I think initially they probably did think there was some smoke there, and Madagascar is a very bad place, and lots of bad stuff happens.
Just to be clear, though, there has not been any charges or prosecution that was actually filed. It was just this whole investigation that's been going on for years.
No, in other words, in any market, you could have good transactions that are proper and legal and other transactions that are not. Okay, and so everything procured from Madagascar is not bad, but some of the things in Madagascar that are procured are bad. And the country is in such a bad state politically, that's very easy to assume that everything in Madagascar is bad. So, in fact, it is illegal, 100% illegal, to take raw material out of Madagascar. Okay, that is absolutely true. But that is raw logs. The law in Madagascar has exemptions that allow certain things, like guitar fingerboards, to be exported from Madagascar. Mm-hmm. So I think that these guys read, sort of the summary of the law and said, hey, you can't take anything out of Madagascar, and here are these guitar fingerboards being exported, and they just didn't read the rest of the law because it's in French.
So, by the way, is it possible to buy these fingerboards in Israel? In the United States? Obviously, you do a huge amount of work to try to keep business in the U.S. Are these raw materials simply not available there?
Well, as a matter of fact, one of the top-selling products of one of our competitors has Madagascar fingerboards, and it's advertised widely. Mm-hmm. So it's not illegal to export out of Madagascar. But I think that the fact that we had a great name, and so we could get a lot of attention, and a misreading of the law and a lack of research caused the government to very aggressively go after us. And once they did that, then they have to justify sending stormtroopers into our factory, and they have to come up with a reason for that. And that's the way I read the situation.
All right. Well, we've been talking with Henry Juszkiewicz, who's the head of Gibson Guitar. It's a fascinating story. Unfortunately for you, for us, it's very fascinating from an academic standpoint. But I think we all have to realize that companies, especially smaller companies who don't have hundreds of lawyers on staff dealing with this kind of thing, really have to watch their backs. Anyway, Henry, in the last few seconds, how can people just follow the progress of the company?
Well, we have a website, and we also are very, very active in the social media. So we have Facebook groups, and we have Twitter groups. I have a Twitter page. So, either on the social media or via the website, where a lot of the social media URLs or ways of finding us are posted, and also there's blogs as well. So
all right, okay, Henry Juszkiewicz from Gibson Guitar. Thank you so much for your time.
Doug, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the time, and I wish you a very nice evening. I appreciate your staying up so late.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.